Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. So, it's a brand new week, we're on a brand new delivery, and we're kicking things off with our brand new issue 31. So this brings us the first of our Chaos Space Marine models, with the awesome Dark Apostle and his Dark Disciples. We also get the full build, full paint guide, we also get his battle record, and then we get to try him out, and that is pretty much it. So yeah, there's not a lot inside this issue, so we get all of our building and painting done, and then it's just going to be our quick naming article, and then we'll try them out in battle. So only the 2 videos again this week. But it's nice that we're finally starting our 4th combat patrol, and I'm excited to get into the Chaos Space Marines, as I have quite a gathering of Chaos Space Marines, mainly thanks to the premium kit from Imperium magazine. I had 2 of that premium kit actually. I got 1 unbuilt still, and I'm thinking I'm going to be putting that Chaos Sorcerer towards my Emperor's Children. So of course, our issue comes with a frame, and we got 2 fairly smallish frames, but we got our Dark Apostle and these 2 Dark Disciples, and some of the extra bits and gubbins there as well. So yeah, pretty cool little character frame. And of course we get bases, 2 25mm bases for the Disciples and 1 40mm for the Apostle. So that's pretty much all we've got in this issue, so let's head to the table. But before we do, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the Combat Patrol content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment down below. Are you looking forward to the Chaos Space Marines now that we're hitting our 4th Combat Patrol? And what are you wanting to look forward to next? I'm not too keen on Orcs and Votan, but for the purpose of the magazine I'll be collecting and painting them. But I think after that I am looking forward to the Geneseed cults, and after that of course World Eaters. That's all we have left really, and of course Cadians. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need for getting started and expanding your armies. They sell new and used models. They also stock the full Games Workshop range, all your hobby equipment including paints and paintbrushes, and your gaming essentials as well. They also stock all the partworks and have their own store, so if you want to check out and look over some of the items in person, head there. There's a link to their website in the video description down below, so check them out. Right, let's hit the table and we'll build and paint our Dark Apostle. So here we are then with issue 31, and let's have a quick close look at our frames. So we got our very demonic looking head there. We got his cape. We got the front torso with some flowing impurity seals. We got the little lectern that the 1 disciple is carrying. We got the face and arms of the lectern carrying disciple there. We got the sensor for the other disciple, the bolt pistol for the apostle, one of his shoulder pads, and a few other bits as well there. And on the other sprue, we got the majority of the body. So we got the burning book, we got the accursed Crozius attached to the pretty much whole torso there. We got the awesome backpack with all those candles and burning braziers, and we've got the 2 Dark Disciples there, so our lectern carrier and our sensor bearer. And we got our bases of course, which we'll need in just a sec when we start building. Let's take a quick look through the magazine first of all. So follow the contents of this issue: build Dark Apostle, paint Dark Apostle, collect Dark Apostle and Chaos Space Marine characters, and then play Arena of Madness. So yeah, like I said, there's not a lot for us to actually go through in this particular issue. So first off, our build guide. So we want to make sure we are checking the numbered components, clipping them off before we start building and gluing. And yes, you will need glue for this model as it is a full multi-part kit. But yeah, we build a lectern here. So the carrier has his arms chained and his face grilled off. We've got the bits that hold the lectern in place. Then we've got the actual bits of the book. Then we got our sensor bearer there as well. So we've got a little flame detail. We've got one of his arms, 2 halves of his torso. That's pretty much it. Then for our Dark Disciple, so we want to glue in the rear bit of the left arm there and part of the cape, a right arm even. The back torso, glue that to the front torso, glue the head and left arm in, glue the shoulder pad in place, glue the front torso in, finally his backpack and bolt pistol, and we're done. Moving on to our paint guide, so this is going to be focusing on pretty much everything we have. So base coat all models with 3 coats of Abaddon Black. Then we start picking out all the silver details, the Baraknar Burgundy on the cape there, doing both sides, as well as the little bit that goes over his front there. Carnage Flesh for all the leather details, Mephiston Red for the book and Crozius, as well as his candles. Retributor armor for all of that gold trim. And then Rakhar Flesh for the purity seals and the book text. Wraithbone for the face and Corax White for these little prayer beads. And there we go, that's pretty much all our base coats done on this guy. The Dark Disciples, again, we want 3 coats of black, Baraknar Burgundy for the robes, Catachan Flesh for the leather pouches, Wraithbone for any exposed flesh, Rakhar Flesh for the parchment, Lead Belcher and Retributor armor for our silver and gold details respectively, Mephiston Red for the inner robes, and then candles, and then finally Mechanical Standard Grey on the greyer inner robes. So moving on to our shading, and Nuln Oil is going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So all our metal details, so the silver details, we're painting with Nuln Oil. The red details, the Baraknar Burgundy details, the prayer beads, the grey details, as well as the leather. And it looks like the Mephiston Red details on the cloak as well. And then we're using Agrax Earthshade just for the parchment and the book detail there as well. And that's pretty much everything we've done so far. There's our finished models. We'll be adding a little bit more detail to them in a future issue. But for now, that's pretty much it, and we can move on. So, right, let's bring in our model, and we'll start building. So the first model we want to build is our lectern carrying disciple. So we'll cut out the parts. We want part 11 here. And then part 10 from here. And then we're ready to glue in together. So we want to put glue where his arms will attach, where his face will attach, and along his bottom there and along his base. So we can glue in our arms and face, and glue him down to his base. So we'll leave that to dry while we start cutting out the bits for the lectern. So you want part 12 first of all. Then onto our model, a little bit of glue just there, there, and at the bottom there. And that fits into place like so. Next we want part 13. So this is the top part of this side and the bottom part of the opposite side. There we go, glue that bit in like so. And finally we want part 14, the opposite side of the lectern. A bit of glue just on these hinges here. And that goes like that. That's our first disciple done. Second disciple then. So we want 16, 15, and you want 17, his arm, which is just here. So I'll run some glue around his waist and down his robes. And we can glue in the bottom robe here. And then a little bit of glue just in there for his arm. It's hard to tell which way it's meant to go. Like that. Yeah. There's his elbow. Well, we're cleaning out the next components. Let's get him drying to his base. Like so. Speaking of the next components, we want parts 18 and 19. So be careful around this spike here. As we go from the back. There we go. So you want to glue the smoke into the back there. Like so. Then you want a little bit of glue in this arm and on this wrist. And there we have our second disciple. So we can move on to our actual Dark Apostle. So our first parts are parts 2 and 3. And glue, we need to put a little bit here and then the rest running down along this. And then trying to figure out which way it goes, like this it should be. There we go. So we got that little bit overlapping the gap there. And that finishes off the back torso. Leave that to dry. We cut out and clean up part 6. So with those cleaned up, you can run some glue around the back of the body here. And then lower this into position. Like so. Next we want parts 4, his book, and 5 on the other sprue, his head. Now to glue this on, we need to put glue inside here and the shoulder pad, and then that pushes in place like so. It should swoop in. Then the head, just want to put a little bit of glue inside the bowl, and the peg should help guide it into place. And you should be looking like that. So next up, parts 7 and 8. So his front and his shoulder pad. So onto our apostle. We want to run glue along here and push all this into place. And then a little bit of glue on his arm there for the shoulder pad, which fits in nicely like so. Looking really good. So last 2 components then, we need his bolt pistol, part 9, well it says 1, and then part 1, which is actually his backpack. So we do need parts 1 and 9, it's just they've been labelled wrong in the book. No surprise there. So his pistol goes on his hip just there. And his backpack glue into place like so. Now what's left to do is put glue on his foot and his tactical rock. And we glue him down to his 40mm round base. And there we go. So we'll give him some drying time, and then we'll come back in with a paint desk and we can start painting these guys. So as I had to go away after filming the build video yesterday and get this guy and his disciples undercoated, I had a little bit of a think on how I'm going to do things. So seeing as we've already done roughly 15 minutes, well I filmed 16 and a bit minutes of building, so what we'll do to end this video is we will paint these disciples first, and then I'll paint the actual apostle in a separate video which will post midweek, and then we can get onto our game which will be posted on the Friday video. So without further ado, let's dive into these guys, and the first colour we need is a Baraknar Burgundy, so this is nice all over the robes. And over the dark black undercoat, probably want a couple of layers. So where's our base brush? There we go, medium base brush. So we can get good coverage. And then onto our apostles, disciples. So I just want to paint this over all the robes. No need to be neat at this point, as we'll cover over areas with other colours. When we come to those stages. So that's the first layer down on our first one, and we'll do the same here. On this guy. So there we go, a nice smooth layer of burgundy down on the robes. We can move to our next colour, which is Carnage flesh, and this is just for this guy's leather pouch and belt. So we won't need much of this paint, just a little bit on our palette. Thinned with a little bit of water. And so we got the pouch here to pick out. And we got the belt, including the belt that goes around the scrolls he's carrying. And you got this little bit of cord holding a Chaos Star on him as well. With the Carnage and flesh dry, we can move on to Wraithbone, and this is for all the exposed skin. So we got hands and face on both models, although this guy we only have the back of his head. So we got back of his head and his neck to pick out. And then we got the hands across his chest. Let that dry and we can do a second layer. As we move over to this guy. Gotta be careful because we've got to work around his hood. We'll get the bionic eye for the moment because we'll come back with that to cover in silver. And he'll reach right underneath and get his neck. And we got his hands as well. Then we have the Wraithbone down. We got one more colour before we move on to metallics, and that's Rakar flesh. And this is just for the scrolls on this guy's hip. So So being careful around the leather strap we've done. We want to do again a couple of layers of this pale colour over the black. There we go, looking good. We'll go back to that in the second layer in just a bit. Then we're moving on to our lead belcher details. So with that done, we can move on to lead belcher, and this is for all of our metallic details. So we've got a lot of chain work to pick out. Just being careful around those areas that we finished. So namely the hands. You shouldn't need too much. So we'll start on this guy. We've got the chain coming down here and the ball on the end of it. Then coming across from his hand. We'll get his bionic eye, which the magazine doesn't actually show, I don't think. No. We'll get it. Now we've got the chain going over the top of his fingers here. And down the other side of his hand. And on this guy, we just got the chains that are holding the lectern down. So they start up on his shoulder and then crisscross his arms. So just got to be careful around the hands. And we got this giant chaos spike going through his body as well. This guy has really had it rough. I've also got a little cable on the underside of his robes. So there we go, our two disciples are starting to look pretty good so far. So now we can move on to our next colour. So sticking with our metals, and we want Retributor armour. This is going to be for the lectern. And there's the little chaos stars hanging from their belts as well. So I'll start on this guy. We've only got the little chaos star to pick out. Just picking out the raised detail of it there. And I painted his belt silver, but that should be gold as well. So we'll cover that over. There we go. And on this guy, well, we've got the massive lectern on his back to paint. So I want probably a couple of layers over the black here. Make sure we work in between all the detail. And we've also got this giant speaker that's been slammed into the poor guy's face. So with our gold details dry, we can move on to our last two colours before our shades. And our first one's Mephiston Red. This is for the inside robes and the candles on top the lectern. So I want to pick out the insides of the sleeves here. The inside folds along here. Oops. And we can try and get as well the inside of the hood. Any overspills we can clean up with Baraknar Burgundy before we do the wash stage. And on this guy we got the inside of the sleeves. And then we got the candles here to pick out. Being careful around the gold, but also making sure you get the drips of the wax. And our last colour to do before our washes is Mechanicus Standard Grey. This is just for the sleeves and trousers that are exposed on our models. So the majority of our exposed undergarments is on the sensor bearer, but we do have the sleeves on our lectern, which you can just about make out there. That's about the only one you can actually see. All the rest are sort of hidden. And on this guy, we've got the exposed underrobe. Being neat around that red, which we were messy with. And again, we got the sleeves. With all our colours now nicely dried, it's time to move on to the shade stage. And for all our red, grey, burgundy and silver areas, we're going to use Nuln Oil. And we just want a little bit of Agrax Earthshade afterwards to do the scrolls on the back of this guy. So we'll start on this guy. I'll shade all of the cloth, the metal, as well as the candles. Being careful around the gold, we don't want to ruin that just yet. We'll shade that in a future issue. And finally then we want a little bit of Agrax Earthshade, just to pick out those scrolls. There we go, we'll leave these to dry and we'll come back to the magazine. And there we go, that's our 2 Dark Disciples painted and ready for battle. All we've got to do now is, of course, paint the Apostle himself. So, like I said, we'll come back to this in a separate video, as we've gone on for quite some time now. So, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this paint tutorial and hope it's helped you paint your Chaos Disciples. So up next, we're going to paint our Dark Apostle, and then we can get on to our game where we get to try this guy out against a variety of enemies. So all that's left for me to do then is to say thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.